Whether you're a first-time buyer or an investor, you need to know about the 5% deposit scheme. We're going to be breaking down in this video what's going on and what the numbers actually look like. I'll be giving you the buyer's agent's perspective, and I've got...
Nevada here from Cube Home Loans.
And Nevada is actually my mortgage broker. So you can work with myself and the team at Purpose Property and head over to Cube Home Loans website if you want to work with those guys. They help you buy anywhere across Australia. But to kick off, Nevada, break me down. You know, everyone's heard about the 1st of October, the scheme coming in. Let's just give a quick recap of what's been going on in terms of the scheme.
Yeah, so big changes. There's been a big uptick in inquiry because of those changes as well. But just a very quick recap. With the scheme, they essentially changed the maximum purchase price caps, different in different states. But in Brisbane, it's essentially $1 million.
$700K to $1 million in buying power to still use a 5% deposit.
Which is it's a hefty jump. They also removed the income caps with the scheme as well. So previously there was income cap thresholds, which meaning high income earners, people earning over 125,000 individually or 200,000 as a couple couldn't access the scheme.
Yeah.
They've also now been scrapped as well.
Yeah, amazing. So this means that we can have more, this is what we're seeing on the ground in the buyer's agency and probably people are seeing out there online. This is seeing a run on the property market. And so you need to be finance ready with a broker like Nevada and their team to actually go out there and buy something. And so maybe just walk us through what that looks like if someone's a first home buyer or even an investor looking to buy in the same price point. How does it work if they want to come work with you guys to get a full picture of their position?
We always just start with a conversation, like a Zoom meeting, phone call, in-person meeting, whatever the customer's preference is. Run through, work out what their current financial situation is, and then also get an idea on what their short-term and longer-term objectives are.
Yeah.
And then we can make recommendations that suit.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is that your broker has a full picture. You know, the amount of buyers that I speak to, I need to understand if they want to buy a property in Queensland or Southeast Queensland, how many properties, you know, if you're a first time buyer, you're just breaking in. So what does that look like? How much risk are you comfortable with? The broker's there to give you that max borrowing power. So say you're earning 130K a year, you can now use this scheme and you've got $80,000 saved. Well, that means you could potentially buy, you know, that's a decent amount of property. You could buy up to $1 million because you've got 50K as a deposit. Then people need to factor in other costs, buyer's agent fees if they're using a buyer's agent, any stamp duty that might come into play and other costs. So, you know, walk us through the numbers of an example buyer as well.
So it's exactly right, Luke. It's about getting that specific roadmap for your circumstance. What's eligible for you? How much cash do you need to contribute, etc. But there's a lot of people talking about the first home buyer scheme, the 5% deposit scheme, and the 5% deposit is factually correct. But what a lot of people are forgetting, in certain instances, there's significant other costs involved with completing a purchase.
What, you don't mean I can come to you with 50 grand and buy my $1 million house and that I've only got 50 grand, mate. Like, let me buy it.
Unfortunately, what they have done, there is a stamp duty concession in Queensland.
Yeah.
But that's currently still sitting at 100%. The stamp duty concession maxes out at 700,000. And then between 700,000 and 800,000, it starts to taper off.
You get a pro-ratering to that.
Correct.
So at 800,001, there's no
stamp duty concession. So there's full stamp duty applicable, even for a first home buyer.
Ballpark 20 grand or something like that.
Yeah, so I got exact figures here.
How close was I?
Just over 25 grand.
25 grand. Well, Queensland actually, funnily enough, if you're buying anywhere in Australia, Queensland has better stamp duty rates than most of the other states.
Yeah, we've seen some, I think South Australia in particular.
They hit you hard in other states. I mean, come buy your first home in Queensland, move up to Brisbane. That's what a lot of people are doing.
We are seeing a fair bit of that. Actually,
yeah, there's a lot of interstate migration, a lot of like people are joking at the moment that we're seeing different number plates. Oh, there's a South Australian, there's a Vic number plate.
Yeah,
there's
when you're in traffic,
Wales.
you
they
feel
stand out.
Yeah.
Quick, become a local, change your number plates. But how about you break down for us, you know, some numbers that you're seeing at maybe different price points to give people an idea as a first home buyer?
Yeah, so we like to work on the figure that's leaving your bank account or the client's purchaser's bank account. Just so it's easy for them. It's not this plus this plus this. It's what should you have in your bank account and allow for towards the purchase. So it's just a nice, easy math. So on $700,000 purchase price, there's the $35,000, which is the 5%. There's still some government charges, transfer fees, all that sort of stuff, just over $2,800. And then we allow $4 grand, which is a little bit over the top for conveyancing, building and pest incidentals. So in that instance, the total funds required is just under 42K.
Okay.
Changing that up to $1 million purchase, which happens to be the max in the scheme. The stamp duty, 5%, incidentals, conveyancing, all that sort of stuff. you're sitting at just under 89,000 total cash required.
Yeah, so using that example at the mill, if I had 50K, I've actually need 89,000 to buy the property.
Yeah, and that's factoring in, like I said, all the government charges, allowing some funds for conveyancing, building and pests. There's probably a little bit of a buffer in there as well, but it's better to have a bit more left over at the end than being short with the transaction. But yeah, it's good to know the actual figure that's required.
Yeah, and a lot of these first-time buyers aren't going to be spending a mil. Some of them are. Like at that 700, 800K price point between about 42 to 70 grand. So that gives you a really good guide. If you are a first-time buyer and you're buying 700 to 800K, maybe try and get close to that 70K number. Yeah. Because that's going to give you enough to get across the line, including the 5%. Even though the government's backing you, you've still got those other fees and costs associated.
That's right. And look, there is alternatives. If you don't have all of the cash, there is alternatives. We're seeing a big uplift in family equity loans again. So that's a way of coming in with even less than the 5% deposit if you have family that owns property and are willing to allow you to utilize some of the equity and do a placeholder of that equity. We're seeing a big uptick in those again because the reality is that parents are often, if they've owned property for a longer period of time, that property now happens to be worth a lot more.
Yeah. They bought a new farm in 1973 and it's gone from 500 grand to $5 million.
That's right. And it's a good way of helping out without actually having to part with cash. There's some risks and things involved to understand and get your head around. But there's a big uptick in that because it's a way of helping out family. They're getting significant benefit and savings, and you're not actually having to part with cash yourself.
Yeah. I think it's really important to work with a good broker. Like we as buyers agents and even me personally need confidence in the numbers. So if I get asked all the time, if I was starting again, what would I do? Well, I know I go to these guys and I say, hey, I had about 70K ballpark when we bought our first home. I would have said to you, I've got about 70K. Look at my day job income. I was an accountant, maybe on $60,000, $50,000 plus my partner. Can you assess our scenario? Give us that max borrowing power. And that's what people need to do with you guys, is get that number. And then we help acquire the asset. The reality is this scheme has brought a lot of heat into the market, but it's not going to be instant. The inquiries out there from the 1st of October are very high, but there's about 40,000 first home buyers, and that's going to bring forward demand, but not everyone's going to buy this month or even in the next 6 months. So you need to sit down with a broker, sit down with a strategist or your family if you're doing it by yourself and work out what your borrowing power looks like first, and then what are you going to buy. On the ground, we've seen the reality is that 650K houses are now 700K. Everything's kind of moved significantly in the last 4 to 6 weeks. But you should be making, when it comes to property, in my opinion, and probably in Nevada's opinion too, you're not buying for 6 weeks or 6 months. You're hopefully buying for 6 years, 7 years. You're making a long-term property decision. Whether that's your own home, like a lot of people, it's a stepping stone. I know you bought your first home as a stepping stone. I bought my first home as a stepping stone. So we just encourage you to get finance ready first and then build your strategy around it.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. And another big thing we're seeing a big uplift in is, I think, because the purchase prices and the demand in the market, a lot of people just forgoing the scheme completely.
Yeah, wow.
And just going straight towards an investment property purchase.
Yeah, great.
Just because they have the luxury of keeping their living expenses low with living with family.
Yeah, amazing.
So we had an example recently. These people had quite healthy savings, but they also had the option to do a family equity loan. They had the option to live with mum and dad, who had plenty of space at their house for the next 12 months, completely rent-free.
Yep.
And they ended up opting towards going down the path of purchasing an investment property because it allowed them to increase their purchase price, and they felt that allowed them to buy a more suitable long-term property.
Amazing.
And there's a lot of logic to that.
Yeah, you get, tax deductibility when you buy the investment property. You can keep your current living situation together. You can potentially, you're getting not just the tax deductions, but you can build on that asset base over time because you've got some active income coming in from there. I think it's a really clever thing to both think about. Yes, get a first home, but if buying an investment makes sense, then you can explore both options on the lending front and work out what's best for you and your family moving forward.
Yeah, and there's pros and cons both ways, but if you can have a discussion with a broker, then you're making an educated decision. You're aware of the costs and pros and cons with each path, and you're allowing you to make an educated decision from that point.
And the reality is that investors are going to be buying at this price point because of affordability. Let's all be honest with each other. Like, investors aren't buying the $1.5 million homes in Southeast Queensland. They're all going to be competing with first home buyers and and other mum and dads who are maybe moving areas and moving home. So you need to be competitive. You need to understand the markets. You need to understand the value proposition of every property you're looking at. That takes time and research and all those things. It's an active, buying is an active process. But if you're educated with the numbers and you're educated with the areas and locations to look at, that can give you a big advantage. So yeah, I think this is a good place to probably wrap it up. But if you do want some help on the broking side, where do people head to have a chat with you guys?
Yeah, cubehomeloans.com.au is probably the best place.
Yep.
Again, there's no commitment. You can just come have a chat. We can answer your questions, just give you a better idea on, even if you're not quite where you need to be yet, just give you an idea on where those goalposts are so you can sort of work your way towards that.
Yeah. And like I said, you guys work with anyone across Australia. So whether you're buying your first home in Sydney or Melbourne or regionally, anywhere, these guys can help you get across your finances. Now, myself and the team at Purpose Property, which you can see somewhere behind me, the team and I are just buying Southeast Queensland because we are boots on the ground buyers agents. So whether you want to buy an investment or buy your first home or buy another owner occupied residence to move into, we can help you on that front. So head over to Purpose Property for that. It's been good chatting with you, mate. We'll see you guys in the next episode, and thanks for sticking around.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.